Let me get... Okay, that should be a little bit better. How is the sound today? Can you guys hear me? Because I can see you guys in the chat. Hello, Ramos, and Gamer Fans, and J.M. Clauser, and Annette, and Nat, and Mudforce. Yay! I can be heard. That's great. So Claudia is running a little bit late today, so I'm not going to beat around the bush and say I am going to stall for a little while. I'm expecting her to log into Zoom in probably the next 15 minutes if her GPS was correct. Maybe a little longer, but that's okay because you guys are here and I appreciate you being here. And we have quite the we have quite the lineup of questions for today. So I guess first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and play. I've got a slideshow here of the questions that we're going to cover once Claudia gets here. So go ahead and take a look and let me know in the comments which one you are the most excited to learn more about today. So that's our list of 9 questions that we're going to start with. Which one are you guys excited to learn more about today? Anything stick out in particular? Drinking through and overwhelming the naltrexone, or nalmefene if you're in that part of the world where you can use that instead. Knowing when we reached extinction. Yeah, that one was on here because we probably see that one several times a month. So it's going to be really good to talk with Claudia and listen through. And so we're going to have a little bit different format for those of you who are used to our programming. What we're going to do is we're actually setting this up to make it really easy for us to split this on the back end into 9 individual files, video files for each topic. So what we're going to end up doing today is we're going to start through... I'll ask Claudia the question. We'll go through and we are going to actually, for once, focus. Imagine that. We're going to focus on one question at a time. We will have any questions that are relevant to that specific topic from you guys, and we'll go ahead and answer those in that segment. And then I'm going to put up a blank screen in between while I change slides over. So it's a little bit of a washout screen, and then we'll come right back with the next question. Then we'll do it all over again. When we get to the end, we'll have a general free-for-all Q&A. So if you thought of a question about a specific topic that we're covering today, and you think about it after we're done with that topic, save it for the end for the general Q&A, and this one's probably going to be a bit long today because these are really intense questions. Most of the answers usually start with, well, it depends. So that's why we wanted to kind of get one segment, one live stream completely dedicated to these questions. and put them in a format that people can watch over and over again and share. Because I know that a lot of you are also in the peer support groups, and you'll hear these questions as well. And now you'll have a link to a video that can just explain it. So the process then also allows more people to learn from it than just the group of people who are here on our Twitch channel. All right. So yeah, so it looks like a lot of the questions are represented in terms of ones that you're looking forward to. Since you guys are here and we are waiting on Claudia, you guys get an exclusive first look at a video that we haven't actually debuted yet. It was made by a volunteer in Australia for us and completed a few months ago. Claudia did the voiceover on it, and it is a technical video explaining the mechanism of naltrexone. So no one other than the gentleman who made this for us, Claudia, and myself have seen this video yet, to my knowledge. So you guys get a first look.
This video will demonstrate how oral naltrexone, when used according to the Sinclair Method, blocks the reinforcement from alcohol to create targeted pharmacological extinction of alcohol addiction. This video is for illustrative purposes only and is not meant to diagnose or treat any medical or mental health condition. Upon consuming naltrexone, the medication goes to the stomach, where it begins to dissolve. The dissolved naltrexone then heads to the liver. In the liver, nearly all naltrexone molecules are converted to its metabolite, 6-beta-naltrexol. The metabolite enters the circulatory system, making its way around the body, including to the brain. At the neuron's surface, metabolite binds the mu-opioid receptors, temporarily blocking them. It takes at least 60 minutes after taking naltrexone to cover enough opioid receptors to block the endorphins released from drinking alcohol. Upon consuming alcohol, it goes to the stomach, where it is quickly absorbed, making its way around the body, including to the brain. One of the effects of alcohol is the release of beta-endorphin. Normally, beta-endorphin binds the opioid receptors, but if the metabolite is blocking the opioid receptor, the endorphin cannot bind and activate the receptor. Over several hours, the metabolite concentration decreases as it is eliminated from the body. If you would like more information about the Sinclair Method or the science behind use of targeted naltrexone for treating alcohol use disorder, please visit the C3 Foundation at www.c3foundation.org.
All right. So yeah, that was a technical video, to say the least. But we thought it was a really important thing for a lot of people to be able to visualize what is actually occurring through the process. And so I want to say that it took nearly a year to go through all of the animation work, all of the scripting, Claudia's voiceover, all of making sure everything was timed well and continued to stay accurate. So yeah, so you guys have seen that video before anyone in the general public. So again, thanks for being here while I stall and we wait for Claudia. I haven't gotten, checking my phone, haven't gotten any additional updates from her, but So we're getting close to our conference. We're getting really, really excited about the conference. We're starting to get some panel sponsors in. Has everybody seen our speaker list? Is anybody? Let me see if I can pop that in here. Find my speakers. So the conference is June 12th and 13th. It is going to be on a weekend, so it's Saturday and Sunday. We haven't gotten the official start and end times each day, but on Saturday, we're going to have a watch party for One Little Pill at the end of the speaker conferences, or the speakers and panels. Okay, here we go. This does not have sound, but I'm going to go ahead and move this over so that you guys can see this, and let me know who you're most excited about seeing, which topic. So we've got our co-presenting sponsors are RIA Health and Work It Health. So we're thrilled that they have signed on. I'm thrilled that I just scheduled the pre-taping for Dr. Escapa. He wanted to be involved last year, but wasn't able to. And so he is going to be involved in this year's conference, but because of time constraints, he is going to be pre-recorded. But we've got a lot of great topics, harm reduction, weight loss surgery. And we've got a message from Claudia saying she's going to be joining in just a moment. So our speakers are coming from 6 countries overall. We'll have Australia, Scotland, Switzerland, Canada. Dr. Escapa's down in South Africa, and our participants in the U.S. So it's truly going to be a global event. All right, it looks like Claudia is joining.
Whew.
Hey!
Hello, everybody.
All right.
Yes, I'm here. Battled the traffic. Gonna take a deep breath and let's dive in.
All right. Yeah, we just had we just let everybody see that technical video that was done on the mechanism of how Naltrexone works. So lots of people loved that.
Yeah, good.
Went through our slides for our speakers for our conference, which is so exciting. And guess what? I got my time and date scheduled with Dr. Escapa for his interview. So I'm super excited about that.
He's a difficult man to push into a corner, so I'm glad you did it.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm thrilled about that. We've got a great crowd in there in our chat room right now. Lots of hi Claudias coming out from gamer fans, Mudforce, Annette, Nat, and others. So we're going to go ahead and get started.
Yeah, if I can say one little plug while you're
absolutely. Go for it.
Just a funny little plug for any of you. I'm going to try something called Cameo Calls, and we're going to raise a little money for C3 Foundation. When I do the calls, I'll try and get them on a fairly consistent basis. But what I need everyone to do is go to Cameo and join my fan club. I know that sounds weird, but that'll give me a better idea of the group, and then I can send out notifications. It's much cheaper than a Cameo shout out. I think it's like $20 or something.
Oh,
And you
wow.
get one-on-one FaceTime and you get a photo at the end of it. So it's just a fun kind of either gift for somebody or something, if you have a burning question or if you just want to help support C3 Foundation. So if you just go to the Cameo on website, join Claudia Christian fan club, and then you'll get notifications when I start doing these calls. If I can figure out the technology, and Jenny has promised to help me with the first one. So maybe, no, she's going to help me with the Streamily thing. I have so many things.
Yeah, I was going to say, I've just been promised by you to do something. Promised to promise.
I made a mistake. Jenny's helping me with the Blood of Zeus Streamily event that we're going to be doing. I'm going to be signing live photos with the cast of Blood of Zeus.
Are we allowed to promote that now?
We're ready to promote.
Okay.
We're ready to promote that. No. So the other thing I'm talking about, little old me, I'm going to figure out the technology behind it. But just if you can, please join the fan club so that I can send out notifications and we get just more of a big group of like-minded people. Thank you very much. Let's start the tough question.
Excellent. All right. So as a reminder, I'm going to go ahead and flip over to the question card. I will read it and then give me a couple moments so that I can switch everything in. We're going to do something a lot different. So okay, here we go with question number 1. So, what if I take my pill, wait my hour, then decide I don't want to drink? And go ahead.
Wonderful. Seriously. If you take your pill and you wait an hour and then you say, you know what, I don't feel like drinking. There are 2 schools of thought. My school of thought, and what I've noticed in clients, is that it's a success. It's a huge step in the right direction. You're not obligated to drink. You don't have to drink. Many people take Naltrexone daily with abstinence. It's not going to hurt you. It's not going to create any disruption of your path on TSM. I think it's wonderful. There were many times that I took my pill and decided not to drink, and I didn't force myself to drink. Now, Dr. Escapa and Dr. Sinclair both said to me, if you really feel like you want to, or if it makes a difference in your comfort level, you could have a small amount of alcohol and consider that a drinking session. But it's not the end all be all. You should follow your own desires. That is what I heard from the proverbial horse's mouth. You'll hear a lot of people arguing that you have to drink if you take the pill. I don't agree. Jenny, what are your thoughts on this?
Well, this is where it becomes it depends for me. Yeah. For me, the advice I give, the first thing I do when somebody asks me that is I ask them, are you pre or post extinction? Because if you're pre-extinction, then if you have, say, an alcohol-free beer instead, then if you're still drinking that out of the same glass, you're still smelling what smells like alcohol, you're still hearing that fizz when you open the can or the bottle, and you're getting endorphin releases from other things. So I guess in both cases, I usually say, if you don't feel like drinking, congratulations. That's the entire point of the Sinclair Method, is for you to have the ability to make that choice. But if someone is pre-extinction, I usually encourage them to have an alcohol-free drink that mimics what they would be getting from their favorite drink if it had alcohol in it, because it will get those other connective endorphins that are released from the drinking scenario.
But a lot of people in this situation particularly say, the thought of drinking alcohol just at that point totally turned me off. So why would they want to drink something that resembles or smells like beer? So in those cases, have some herbal tea, have a non-alcoholic beverage that doesn't resemble booze, because they're feeling like
I really don't want to drink. And like you said, it really depends on the situation.
What I've found is that, and we'll cover an entire section on extinction a little later on, but typically those who say that they're repulsed at the thought of drinking right now, even though they took their naltrexone and thought they were going to, those are people who are usually, even if they haven't, quote unquote, declared it yet, they're probably at or very close to extinction anyway.
Sure. And then there's the people who they took the tablet and now their kid broke their ankle and they need to go to the hospital and they're going to be driving, so they just can't drink. Their plans have changed. They're not about to put a kid in the car after having a glass of wine or two. So they're going to say, no, my plans have changed. I'm not going to drink, but I took the naltrexone. Don't stress out. Don't drink. that's the kind of scenario that, it absolutely makes no sense at that point to force yourself into a drinking session, no matter how small. It just ignore the fact that you took the pill and carry on with life. So there's a million different situations. You could even show up at a so-called party after popping a pill, like I did in the past, and it was an alcohol-free party because it was a bridal shower or something, and they decided since the bride or baby shower, since the pregnant mother couldn't drink, nobody was going to drink. And here I thought they were going to be serving champagne, so I took a pill.
And yet we hear people who have similar scenarios where it completely stresses them out because they're afraid they're doing TSM wrong if suddenly they can't take that. And then that fear of having sabotaged themselves by not drinking, which is mind-blowing when you think about it, can actually cause them to then want a drink in other cases.
I got to share a quick story with you. I was in France, and this was like year 1 or 2 or whatever it was, on TSM. Still didn't know all of the ins and outs. I was like highly obsessed with taking the pill and drinking exactly 1 hour later. For some reason in my mind, it was like a OCD thing. I go on a wine tasting, and this is my first sort of venture like that. So I pop the pill and I go on this wine tasting, and it is hours and hours of educational walks through the wine cellars with no alcohol inside. Hours. I mean, I took the pill at like 12 noon, and now by 3 p.m. I'm almost in tears. I'm so anxious because I'm thinking, oh my God, I'm doing it wrong. And I'm so upset, visibly upset, that the guy running the tour comes over to me and said, are you okay? And I'm like, I'm on this treatment for alcoholism. I'm supposed to drink exactly 1 hour after taking this medication. I mean, spilled out of me. And the guy's like, oh, well, the wine testing is coming up in maybe 20 minutes. And I was like, okay. I was petrified. And I wish I would have known that it's okay. It was fine. I was fine. It wasn't going to wear off that quickly. But I literally, even though I was told you're safe for X amount of hours, for some reason I was obsessed with that. Drink, wait an hour, take the pill, wait an hour, drink.
So well, and I think that's common, though, in a lot of people, because there are people who start the Sinclair Method 100% with the belief that it's TSM or nothing for them. Nothing has worked so far. If this doesn't, this is the absolute last chance. And so people who come to TSM with that mindset, they have a lot riding on this working for them, and they care so deeply about achieving lasting results that they are terrified of doing absolutely anything that could undermine that success. And and I try to remind people of that you're getting stressed out over this because you care, because it matters to you, and because you really want this that badly. And so, I mean, this comes up for so many people, but a lot of times this can be somebody's first alcohol-free day.
Sure. And that's a huge boon. That's a great gift. Take it, enjoy it, pat yourself on the back. Absolutely.
Yeah. So So we do have one comment here. Belenky Boy says, I agree with Claudia. I think anything that gives you perspective today that is different than what was yesterday's behavior pattern is a win. I've learned more from alcohol-free days than Nal days. But Nal days are important, especially if you're pre-extinction.
Yeah, thank you. Absolutely right, David.
So if you were going to concisely give just a closing answer to this question as a summary.
It all depends on the situation. Seriously, it really depends on the situation, where you are in your TSM journey, what the circumstances are. If you've never had AF days, if you're driving somebody, it depends on the circumstance.
Here's one circumstance we haven't touched on, which is also a reason to not drink if you don't feel like drinking. A lot of people who are binge drinkers can be very hesitant to simply take that one sip or one small drink when they don't want to drink because of fear that it's going to turn into a lot more than that.
Again, that's a huge win. You just had a massive win. You took the medication and it did what it's supposed to do. It eliminated your cravings and the compulsion to drink. So great. Count that up, chalk it up for a wonderful experience.
So Batmondo says, I've taken my pill and then while waiting, I've forgotten to drink until many hours later and then just didn't bother. I'm glad to hear it's not a big deal.
Good. It's not a big deal.
So does anyone out there in the audience have additional questions about situations where when you take your pill and then you don't feel like drinking, what to do? I'll give a couple moments to see if there's any other comments and questions coming through on this particular question. Because this has been a major touch point. I mean, there seems to be a very hard line of people who, like your fear of it has to be exactly 1 hour. Yeah. You always have to have a drink. Now, there's definitely the benefits to having your alcohol-free days also be naltrexone-free days as well. So maybe while we're waiting for a couple questions, maybe you can talk about why ultimately you want to aim for not taking the medication on the non-drinking days.
TSM is a dual therapy, and the dual aspect of that therapy is producing good natural dopamine, endorphins on your own by doing good positive activities. So you really want to strive for those flush out alcohol-free days, naltrexone-free days, but you don't want to pressure yourself into it. And this is difficult enough. So to sit there and judge yourself or to slap yourself because you took the pill and didn't drink is ridiculous. Every single one of these scenarios comes down to this. You're trying to improve your drinking. You're on TSM. Bravo. So don't stress out about it. Now, if you can do an alcohol-free day, when the naltrexone's out of your system and alcohol's out of your system and you go for a lovely nature walk, yeah, you're going to feel great. But once again, if you take a naltrexone and don't drink, that's a huge win too. So let's just take everything in perspective, be kind to ourselves. This is a healing process. And the most important thing right now is to love yourself and to be kind to yourself and to heal, because there's so much trauma that is associated with addiction that the last thing we need is just one more beat up session on ourselves.
Exactly. Especially when it's something that should be celebrated instead.
Exactly. I'm excited for the next question.
Okay, well, I'm going to transition over to my little washout screen real quick while I change the question cards. And Claudia, you can't see it, but our wonderful graphics volunteers have started giving me the backgrounds for the conference graphics. And what everybody's about to see here is a beautiful background screen that does a great job of adding our logo's gradient into the image.
Ooh.
Okay, question number 2. If alcohol stresses the liver and naltrexone is processed through the liver, how can anyone use TSM?
This is the age-old question, and I've heard it from doctors. Really, predominantly what I hear from doctors is, I feel far more safe prescribing naltrexone for an individual than knowing that they're consuming a bottle of vodka or 2 bottles of wine a night. So when you look at the damage, once again, I'm not a doctor, but if you look at the damage that ethanol does to the liver and processes through the liver, and you look at the evidence on naltrexone as to how much you would have to take to potentially do any damage to one's liver, I really think that the benefit of naltrexone outweighs the destruction of alcohol on the destructive nature of alcohol on the liver. How can one take it? Well, if you have cirrhosis or extreme liver damage, you can't take naltrexone. And that's just something a doctor will, if they note yellow in the eyes, or they think that you perhaps are in the beginnings of cirrhosis or any extensive liver damage, they will do a liver scan, a testing, and that result will dictate whether or not you can start taking naltrexone. We unfortunately do not get nalmefene in this country, but that is not processed through the liver. It goes through the stomach. In the future, there will be other ways of delivering naltrexone to your system immediately to the brain through nasal sprays and other devices. And that will also bypass the liver by go directly to the brain and then through the stomach. So the future looks bright for those individuals that have liver damage and are not able to. And that liver damage, by the way, can be from a myriad of things. It doesn't necessarily have to be from alcohol. It could be from Hep C. It can be from other issues. So those patients will have other opportunities in the future once these delivery systems become patented and available.
And that's the thing is alcohol, its effect on the liver is completely dose dependent. So the more you drink, the more damage the more capacity for damage it has. The less you drink, the less capacity for damage. And the liver also has the ability to heal itself to a point, which is why cirrhosis is the kind of dividing line between whether or not TSM is going to be able, or somebody's going to be able to use TSM, because what many people have said, like I've heard this, and Claudia, definitely chime in if you have as well, but a lot of people start out the Sinclair method and their liver tests, their liver function tests are coming in high, and as it continues to work for them and they're drinking less, those tests tend to become closer to normal.
Yeah, that was me. I had when I finally found a doctor that would prescribe. Well, in the beginning they started doing liver tests, and there was a little, that's a weird enzyme. When I went back because of TSM, my liver test was absolutely perfect. I will say there was Dr. Scapa, and you can ask him this, but he used to compare that. He used to say that you would have to take 300 milligrams a day, every single day, for a very long period of time to really note or to start supporting the belief that there might be a little bit of adverse effect on the liver. But he said to me many, many times when I voiced my own fears about being on this medication that I didn't know anything about, he said, "Claudia, do you take over-the-counter pain meds?" And I said, "Oh yeah, I have arthritis. I take Aleve quite often." He's like, "Well, naltrexone is safer for your liver."
Yeah, definitely. Tylenol, all the NSAIDs out there. Those can be very stressful on the liver, and so typically, what I have heard feedback even from the doctors in our network is that for most people who do not already have severe liver damage, the benefits and reduction in stress from the reduction of alcohol far outweighs the little bit of stress from naltrexone being processed through the liver.
Absolutely. And I've heard this from dozens and dozens of doctors. I've even heard from doctors that they wouldn't hesitate to give naltrexone to a pregnant woman if she was drinking to excess, because it's safer, that even though they haven't done extensive studies on that, they felt that it's safer than drinking when you're pregnant. So I always like to think that the FDA does make these declarations of could be, might be, but I from the horse's mouth, from both Dr. Sinclair and Escapa, they both said that it's an extremely safe medication. And as we know, people have been on it every day for years with abstinence, and people have been on it for years in microdoses for MS and fibromyalgia with no adverse, nothing adverse to their liver. So.
And this is why it's also good to talk about. If you have any kind of concern about your liver, talk with your doctor. Your doctor's going to go through your entire medical history. They're going to ask you about other medications that you're on and supplements. And it's so critical that you're 100% honest with your doctor, which is why, when it comes right down to it, we always advise, if you're going to your doctor and they're able to put you on the Sinclair Method and want to continue learning more, point them toward us so we can help give them additional resources so that they can learn. And if you've got a doctor who just simply doesn't understand and doesn't want to try to understand, find one who does understand the Sinclair Method, because a stressed liver those symptoms can mimic side effects. Now, you don't know which one you've got, because if you're not able to be honest with your doctor, then other things can creep up, and you're not going to have anything except peers to really point you in the right direction. And a lot of things can be so individual, like stress on your liver, that the answers that you get could end up making you more confused than when you started, because everyone may have a different answer for what happened with them.
You also need to really begin this journey with honesty, and that means telling your doctor exactly how much you're drinking. I know a lot of people downplay it out of embarrassment or shame. It's so imperative that they see the severity, if severity exists, because, for instance, when I tried to get medication, I said, I'm drinking, like a bottle a night. And my doctor actually poo-pooed that and went, oh, that's fine. You're just probably under stress. Had I told him the reality, which is I'm drinking earlier and earlier and earlier, maybe I would have gotten the help I needed sooner. So I implore all of you to just be really honest, or to encourage others who are just starting their journey. Be completely honest with your doctor. Just say, this is what I take. These are the medications and supplements, everything I'm on that could potentially, damage my liver. For instance, people don't realize that zinc is a metal and it builds up in your body. So you should take time off of zinc, even though it's wonderful for viruses and colds and flus and everything. You need to give your body a break from it. So you need to tell your doctor everything that could be potentially interacting with each other, and exactly how much you're drinking. And that's a really great way to start a good TSM experience, or any medical experience, is honesty.
Absolutely. Because the only way they can truly support you is if they have the complete picture.
Yeah.
But that's also, when it comes to stressed liver, because the liver only has the capacity to heal itself up to a certain point, this is one of the reasons why you and I are so passionate about getting the Sinclair Method recognized more as a preventative, so that as soon as you are not comfortable with how much you're drinking, that's the time. And right now, we do still have too many in the medical profession who will do exactly what your doctor did, Claudia, and say, whatever. People drink more than that. It's no big deal. But if it's a big deal to you,
that's all that matters. Yeah, if you're
address it.
Just say, I'm uncomfortable with my drinking. Your doctor should, even if it's 3 glasses, 2 glasses a night, or 1 glass every single night, your doctor should help you. because that's what you're asking for, and it makes you uncomfortable. And
I'm,
some people are, one glass of wine, they're lightweights, they're little, a very slight person, that could be a lot of alcohol for their system. So it's up to you to decide what you want for your treatment and your recovery.
I mean, imagine if you were gaining a little weight and your favorite pair of jeans started feeling tight. Are you going to wait until you're 75 pounds overweight before you do something about it? No, you're going to address it as soon as you realize it's uncomfortable.
Yeah.
And alcohol use should be no different. It's your health.
It is, and it's important.
So let's see. We've got, Belenky Boy says, I take other medications that are necessary that my doctor monitors with liver scans every 3 months. Way less impactful than alcohol damage or cirrhosis from boozing. Yeah, and that's another thing that people don't think about is, and you mentioned this, how many other medications are there out there that are processed through the liver?
Yeah, millions.
For anyone who does have liver issues, you already know that anything over the counter, you've got to look and see if it has a warning. Yeah. Next time you're in the over the counter pharmacy area, just grab a random medication or two and look at it, and more likely than not, you're going to find something that says talk to your doctor if you have liver problems.
Yeah, exactly. The majority of them do have that.
Yeah.
Recommendation.
So, let's see. We've got, find a doctor you can trust and who's willing to work with you. Rayla found one willing to work, so that was good. Does anyone have any questions for this segment for the liver stress? Yeah, if you can drink a Red Bull, you can definitely take naltrexone. Yeah, I believe that.
Yeah, because who knows what tauronine and all these other crazy things do to your liver.
Yeah, I definitely believe that one. I can't imagine trying to drink a Red Bull these days. All right, we don't seem to be having any questions on this one. So if you want to do a another quick summary of naltrexone and whether or not you should worry about it on the liver.
You should, if you think or suspect that you have damage to your liver, it's always wonderful to get a scan. Speak to your doctor before you start any medication, including naltrexone. But keep in mind that the damage you're doing to your liver with alcohol is probably more extensive than any damage naltrexone could ever inflict. That's just what most doctors think. But always go the safe route and speak to your doctor before starting any medication.
All right, we're going to take a quick pause as we transition into our next question. All right. Why can't anyone just tell me how often I should redose?
Oh, Lord. What a question. Here's why. Here's why nobody can tell you 120-pound, 5'4" male, female who never works out and eats meat every day and is on 9 other medications and is 16 years old or 80 years old. There's a lot of variables. Okay, so I have clients who literally burn through naltrexone in 4 hours. And how do we know that they're burning through it? Because their drinking starts to escalate and they can feel that same buzz that they used to feel before naltrexone blocked their brain. I have clients who only drink in the evening and only drink for 4 hours. So there's no question about redosing, and it's all good. Every single person is different. There's people with lap band surgery. There are people who have very, very slow metabolisms. There's people who have thyroid cancer and had their thyroid removed. We don't know. We are not doctors. We cannot look at every single individual and say, you are going to metabolize naltrexone exactly in this manner. It's kind of an experiment. I'm sorry to say this. To be on the safe side, there are doctors like Dr. Audie Jaffe who says, well, just redose every 4 hours. Then there are other doctors who say, you know what, to be safe for the average person, let's redose every 6 hours. Then there are other doctors who say, you're safe for 10 hours.
Yeah, I have heard from the doctors in our network 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, and never. And just there's no reason for a second dose. And these are people who this is what they're using in their clients and are having success with them. So the thing is if you take it sooner rather than later, it's not like it's going to hurt you. If you take it later when you need it sooner, then you're going to experience a little bit of a thing that we're going to talk about in an upcoming question, which is, overwhelming the naltrexone and drinking through it.
Let's just talk about common sense for a second, okay? The half-life is 10 to 12 hours. You're relatively young. You work out. You're in whatever. You're a normal person. You go on holiday and you know that you're going to drink at noon and you pop a pill at 11 a.m. and you do drink at noon. And then you go and you take a siesta because it's Spain. Now you're going to go out to dinner. Common sense kind of dictates, you know what? It's been a long time because they eat dinner at 9 o'clock in Spain. I took it at 11 a.m. It's probably either worn off or wearing off. So to be safe, I always say, just use your common sense. It's not going to hurt you to take another 50 milligrams and wait an hour and then go to dinner. I mean, I just think it's better to be safe than sorry. And I see so many people whose drinking escalates later on in the day because the naltrexone is worn off, and now they're drinking twice as much as they would have.
Well, and then there's also the situation where even though most of the naltrexone, which the naltrexone's half-life is 12. The metabolite is 13. But, and so it's a combination of the two, which also, again, brings into your metabolism. But while naltrexone is mostly absorbed by the body, it varies wildly in what's called bioavailability. Bioavailability, for anyone who doesn't know what that is, the basic concept is you can put as much of a substance into your body as possible, but only a specific amount is available for your body to absorb and actually use, which is part of the over-supplementation argument that people are taking supplements that are not in a form that your body can absorb. And basically they say especially America has the world's richest pee.
Yeah.
So you can take 50 milligrams of naltrexone, but if you could individually only have 5% of that as a bioavailability or 40%. So what you are absorbing and what your body is capable of actually transitioning to work, it's vastly different from somebody who's only getting 5% as opposed to somebody who's getting 40%. And unfortunately, there are no tests, even in the pipeline, to determine how much percentage of naltrexone a person will have as a bioavailable to them. So, better safe than sorry is really a good way to look at it. So here's another question that comes around redosing that we get. I'd love to hear your thoughts on this. So if I have already decided I'm going to redose, my doctor has already said, yes, redose at this time. Do I need to wait an hour again?
Yeah, you do. Yeah, you do. Because much like in the first dose, you wouldn't take the first dose with your first cocktail. The second dose has to get into your bloodstream and to your brain so it can do its job. And that takes an hour.
And some people will say, but I'm already drinking and I've already got the alcohol in my system.
It doesn't matter. What I always recommend is you stop drinking, for a period of time and hydrate. Take the pill and hydrate for the next hour, which is also a smart thing to do when you're drinking that long of a period of time, or any drinking. Alcohol is a diuretic, as we know, so you're losing a lot of moisture. So rehydrate, wait the hour again, and then resume drinking mindfully.
Now, there are so many benefits to this, and I always give the exact same advice. I always say, if you are able to wait that hour, do it. If you are not able to wait that hour, wait as long as you can. And then the next time, try to wait a little longer. And work your way toward that hour. First of all, it helps to reinforce the habit of waiting an hour every single time after you take the medication.
Yeah.
Second, if you're drinking for 12 hours, just taking that 1 hour off and having water, eat something, because food slows your body's absorption of alcohol. It's going to put you in a much better position to not continue for another 12 hours or until you pass out, because just by taking that hour and removing your alcohol and your standard drinks from that short amount of time, that is already reducing your intake just through that simple measure.
The food idea is a great one to add to the hydration, even if it's a banana or a yogurt or something simple, cheese and crackers, because the medication, it just functions better with aligned stomachs. So, and also you're going to feel better. Your blood sugar levels will help, even them out a little bit. You're not going to get hangry or cranky. You're going to maybe feel a little bit better the next morning as well, having food in your system. A lot of people drink in a very unhealthy manner. They drink on an empty stomach to achieve a massive buzz. And I always try to tell people we're relearning how to drink and how we use this substance. So that's not a healthy use of the substance. Normies don't drink on an empty stomach to achieve a certain feeling. That's not what normal people do. So if we're going to start trying to drink like a normal person, then why are you raising your eyes?
Because that is exactly what I used to do. Without ever that is actually, unfortunately, even if you never become addicted, that is a drinking pattern that can be achieved. And especially in your early 20s, when you're limited on funds, I'm going to go out with a bunch of friends. I can't afford 8 drinks to get me buzzed. So I'm going to go out on an empty stomach. I'm going to drink, and then I'll have food afterward.
Do you see this is what, I mean, this is in this country and other drinking cultures. We've been taught that that's normal, where you go someplace where alcohol is served only with meals, like France or someplace, and you see people even in the bars during a cocktail hour, they always have something to eat there, and people always eat some olives and some crackers and some cheese and something to line their stomach. That's just the way you drink alcohol. You don't drink to get. But the whole point is conviviality, to friendship, good conversation. It's not to get buzzed or shed-faced as soon as possible. That's the completely drinking culture concept that we need to stop. And
oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's definitely not healthy. It's definitely dangerous. But it's also one of those things that, I do want people who are out there thinking that, well, these are the ways I'll know when I've gotten there, that even people who are not addicted to alcohol can have those moments. And so it's not necessary. Some things are not actually about whether or not you're addicted. It's whether or not you recognize that certain drinking patterns are not good for you.
Exactly.
Even those not addicted can exhibit very, very bad, dangerous drinking patterns.
Sure. So it's once again comes back to self-awareness and mindfulness.
So the quick summary, while we're waiting, if anybody has any questions on redosing, this is a great time to type them in there, guys. So while our audience is getting any potential questions together, go ahead and do a quick summary of why people cannot just tell you when to redose.
I feel like this summary is much like question number one summary, which is it's all dependent on the individual. And this is another question that you should be, ask your doctor or your provider about, but also it's up to you to be honest with yourself. Do I feel the medication wearing off and now I'm escalating my drinking because it feels good and I'm chasing that buzz? You know when that's happening, and you have to be honest with yourself and say, I'm not going to go down that road because this is exactly the kind of behavior I'm trying to stop. So being hyper aware of if your drinking is escalating and saying, you know what, I think the medication wears off around 7 hours for me. Great. Now we know you should redose. And also delay. And that will get you to the point where you won't need to redose because you're drinking later and later in the day. That's always a good trick to employ. But in summation, it depends on the individual. Jenny and I can't tell you, precisely you, when you need to redose, unfortunately, but use your common sense.
So we have one comment in here, comment question from Helen. In the UK, our coaches tend to steer us away from double dosing, which seems healthier. Now, my question on that question is, are you talking naltrexone or are you talking nalmefene? Because although they're both abbreviated NAL, they are two completely different medications with different half-lives and different durations of how. Okay, so Helen says naltrexone. Because what we're talking about here is all naltrexone because it doesn't apply to nalmefene.
So, Helen, that's interesting that in the UK, which is also a very heavy drinking culture, that the doctors would not implore you, if you go out for Sunday lunch and you're drinking during Sunday lunch, that they would just think that you're going to magically come home and go out for drinks at 9 p.m. and be fine and not start escalating and doing shots at midnight. That's something you might want to bring up with your provider in the UK to educate them that it does wear off, and it wears off quickly in some people. So, once again, for you as an individual, you have to use your common sense. And if you have two activities on one particular weekend or something where you think you're going to be drinking, maybe take it into your own hands if you have enough medication. So if you're not a daily drinker, you will have extra pills and you can use that for a second dose.
All right, we're going to go ahead and transition over to the next question. All right. So, next question. What's the difference between drinking through the NAL and overwhelming the NAL?
Well, drinking through the naltrexone is when you're not drinking mindfully and you're drinking to excess in order to try to achieve the feeling you used to have without naltrexone. Overwhelming the naltrexone, in my experience, has been somebody who also is not drinking mindfully and does a quadruple shot of vodka exactly 1 hour after taking naltrexone. That's a very, very subtle difference. Drinking through it, for the majority of people, is chasing that particular buzz and drinking in the old way that they used to, even though they don't feel like they really want or need a second drink or a third drink or a sixth drink. So they're not listening to any of the changes that are going on in the brain. They're simply staying in habit mode, and that's something that we always implore people to change right up front. You have to really listen to yourself, and that is asking yourself after every single drink, do I really want or need another drink, and why? And if you get into that habit of asking yourself, do I really want or need a second drink or third drink or whatever, and why, you're not only stopping your brain for a second from the habit of just, yeah, another one, which is mindless behavior. You're being mindful, but also you have to listen to the cues. Your brain is changing. Hopefully the naltrexone is saying to you, no, I actually don't need another drink. I know you're used to having 6 shots with your friends, but I don't really want it. You've got to be aware, hyper aware, especially in the beginning of this process. So you've got to really listen to your body and say, well, what's going on here? Do I want that next drink because I always have 4, or because I'm trying to achieve a certain feeling, a certain buzz, a certain level of intoxication that makes me feel comfortable? Well, that right there is not healthy drinking. The average normal person does not drink to get loaded. We have to relearn that whole experience of drinking. This entire thing, TSM, is relearning how to drink. And you don't drink to push down emotions or because you're, the halt B, hungry, angry, lonely, tired, bored. None of those are legitimate reasons to drink. So right from the beginning, if you're overwhelming the naltrexone or drinking through the naltrexone, you're probably doing it for the wrong reasons. Well, I would patently say you are doing it for the wrong reasons. You're trying to either achieve a certain feeling, or you're trying to use it as a substance to push down emotions, or because you're trying to self-medicate.
Yeah, I think I draw a close line, close to what you've said when I'm describing the difference, but I see them as a little bit more distinct. And yet you describe them both very close to how I usually do. Drinking through the now, I usually describe as you have seen those signals in the moment while you're drinking, and you have chosen to ignore them. Drinking through the now is usually a choice. And if you're making that choice, I'm not judging you. So don't judge yourself, but simply own it. If you're making a choice, just be real with yourself that, you know what, tonight I made that choice to drink through the naltrexone. Overwhelming the naltrexone, I feel, is more of an accident. As you said, it's drinking far too fast, or in quantities where you can't see those signals. You're missing the signals to stop, because you're not even capable of putting that mindset into it, because there's an illustration that you and I have both used before about naltrexone being gum in a lock. And drinking, for me, drinking through the now is realizing that the door is locked, saying, I don't like this, and doing everything you can to just take the door off the hinges. Overwhelming the now, instead of just trying to turn that doorknob a little bit, it's like realizing there's C4 under it, and you just blow the entire door up. But you didn't mean to do that. But no amount of naltrexone is going to work in that keyhole if you blow the door up.
Yeah, and I think overwhelming it, let's use logic and common sense again. I think slowly drinking a beer is not going to overwhelm it. Doing a Long Island iced tea or 2, I mean, let's be sensible about this. Hard alcohol it's a mighty bash to the brain. One martini can have upwards of 4 shots of vodka in it. So if we're trying to reduce our drinking, we're trying to learn how to drink like a normie. Let's choose a beverage that's either lower in alcohol, or let's mix your 1 shot of hard alcohol with some mixer. So doing a shot is a deliberate attempt to get a buzz. And let's just, you can mince words all you want. Well, I have a lot of people saying, well, I'm a vodka drinker. That's what I do. I drink 2 shots automatically, so I just get that feeling. And I'm like, well, it's going to be a different experience now. And unfortunately, you're not going to get, maybe not going to get that exact same feeling with those 2 shots right off the bat, because that's not really healthy. So we want to try and go slow and mindful and drink slower. I used to be a very fast drinker. And it's because my tolerance was so high at that point that I was getting zero effect from the alcohol. So I could drink a glass of wine and 2 sips and I wouldn't even feel it. But that's not good. That means my tolerance is so high because I've been drinking so much. So all of these things, we just have to own it, as Jenny said, and be honest with ourselves. That's the most important thing. This is a process. It's not going to be linear, but we can help the process along by just taking it slow and not overwhelming the brain with a shed load of alcohol.
Yeah, and when you've got yourself to a point where you're able to say, well, okay, I want the Sinclair method to work, but I also want to get that buzz. Imagine what happened if you got into your car. First of all, you can't put your car in drive and reverse at the same time. And if you put your one foot as hard as you can on the gas pedal and the other foot as hard as you can on the brake, you're not going to go anywhere. The reasons are because these are competing interests. Recovery and getting drunk intentionally are competing interests. And especially prior to extinction, our bodies, our brains, we are wired to work like water. We will take the easiest, most convenient path. That's what our brains are wired for us to do. So if you're trying to stop while at the same time trying to go full throttle, which one is your brain going to take you toward? It's going to be the conditioned response that you already have, and that's going to be to continue to drink until you get drunk.
Yeah. Fall back on what you know.
Yeah.
And that's not what we want to do. We want to change that behavior.
Yeah. So at some point, the two if the two are equal, one is going to give way to the other. And it's a matter of which one are you willing to do effort? Not white knuckling. White knuckling isn't going to get you anywhere. But unfortunately, TSM is not a magic pill. Naltrexone is not a magic pill. TSM is not a magic process, and it does take effort.
Yeah, but that's it's you got to help the pill along, and especially in the beginning, people see these miraculous results from the naltrexone alone, but they don't start changing habits and adding things to their lives. So, that's why it's so great nowadays. You have all this access to these resources of learning how to really do TSM properly, and there's going to be good times and bad times. Nothing is linear. It's all good. Just being aware is a really good step in the right direction.
Well, and I think when it comes to both drinking through the NAL and overwhelming the NAL, you have already given some good tips. Drinking slower helps. Drinking lower ABV, and for those of you who don't know ABV, it's alcohol by volume. It's a little percent listed on most alcoholic beverages, at least here in the U.S. Doing those two things can definitely help to avoid both of those. If you're drinking through, ask yourself, and maybe in the moment you can't, but maybe the next day, did you miss the signal? Is there something else going on? What other tips do you give, Claudia, to help people to neither drink through nor overwhelm the naltrexone?
Well, I always tell them to eat prior to taking the medication, because that's going to help. If they're a hard alcohol drinker, I make them choose a really tall glass, like a big water glass, and measure out 1 shot and add a mixer that they like, to that glass and drink it mindfully and slowly. And I always tell them, they're going to have to jot down their drinks and keep their drink log, just all of us to keep mindfulness. And to drink in between, to try and hydrate in between drinks so that they don't drink so quickly, and to really be conscious about how quickly. And once again, once they finish that first drink, whether it's a beer or a glass of wine or a mixed drink, ask yourself, do I really want or need the second drink, and why? And just taking that moment to take a break, maybe go for a walk or do something, or delay the next drink. Let's say you answer yes. Delay, delay, delay. I cannot stress enough how much delaying helps. Even if you delay by playing with your dogs for half an hour, you've delayed another half an hour of drinking. You've broken a habit. Congratulations, because your habit would be normally to just keep drinking. Another thing, and we talk about this all the time, but it's amazing that people still do this. Leave your alcohol someplace else. Make it an effort to get up and make the drink. It's the same thing as when you're on a diet. Would you leave a plate of cookies out all day? No, because every time you walk by the plate of cookies or Halloween candy, you'd stuff your face. I know I've done it before. It's amazing what happens when they're out of sight. The alcohol's out of sight. If it's red wine, put it in a pantry behind a cabinet. Don't leave it on the counter. If it's white wine, leave it in the fridge behind the milk. Just keep it out of sight and make it an effort to get yourself the second drink. Don't keep your liquor next to you when you're watching a movie. That's for damn sure. So it's all about mindfulness and making that effort to not drink through it, by also understanding when you're in a social situation that you want to slow down, saying out loud, no, I'm drinking slowly tonight. I need to drive later, or I have a big day tomorrow. Just coming up with normal responses so that you can train your own brain to say no on occasion, or to say, I want to slow down. So you're the one that's in the driver's seat as far as, drinking fast or drinking slow. So it really does take effort, but you will get in good habits the more you employ them and make an effort, and the more mindful you are.
And the great thing about effort is effort doesn't have to be some giant, earth-shattering, life-changing thing. Small efforts. Small. Even the tiniest thing, the littlest effort, can make a difference. And so you don't have to change everything, every pattern, every habit in one night. Pick one that you want to work on this week. And just focus on that one.
Maybe even just switch to a lower alcohol beverage for a week, cider or beer, or don't drink a fortified wine, drink a lower alcohol wine, or put a half a shot in a drink and see if that's enough.
Put more mixer in.
So you drink slower. Get a larger glass, and put more mixer in it.
Or for people who only drink their vodka or gin straight, I tell them, grab a larger glass, fill it with ice, and then let it sit 5 or 10 minutes longer than you normally would.
Yeah, it requires effort, but you're the one that wanted to start this journey, and you're the one that reached out to start TSM and went through all the trouble of contacting your doctor, being honest with your loved ones and yourself. So let's make it the best process possible. And part of that is really being honest and making these small changes, which will add up to wonderful results at the end of the day.
All right. Any questions? Questions about drinking through or overwhelming the now? By the way, while we were talking, Letitia Lemon gave us a raid, bringing 8 people with her.
Hello, Raiders and Raiderettes. How are you today?
And Enkzilla gave us a follow, so that's wonderful as well.
Thank you.
So it doesn't look like we have any questions, so let's go ahead and transfer on. Going over to the 5th question.
Number 5, Cinco. Coming up on Cinco de Mayo, perfect time to practice mindfulness.
Okay, we're going to transfer back over to our washout here for a moment. We'll go ahead and give a pause, Claudia. All right, question number 5 is another doozy of a question.
Oh boy.
What does extinction even mean? And how will I know if I've reached it?
That's a great question. And I believe in my heart and soul that you will absolutely know when you reach extinction, but it's something different for just about every person. When you think about the compulsive aspect of an alcohol use disorder or cravings, when you think about these things, like for instance, if you're trying to work and all that keeps popping into your head is, what time is it? Is it time to drink? Can I take my pill? Can I drink tonight? Should I drink tonight? How much alcohol do I have in the house? Should I go to the market? All of this committee, this conversation going in your head. That's usually a big part of addiction to any substance. Same with cigarette smokers. When can I go outside to have a smoke? When can I go outside to have a smoke? So you think about that. And then you think about that physical discomfort when you haven't had a drink in a while. That sort of, oh God, my skin is crawling. My muscles feel tight. Oh God, I just want to feel that sweet relief of my drug of choice. So those are cravings. And that is a mental craving and a physical craving. So you know what those, if you've experienced that feeling, those feelings, then you will absolutely know when an entire day has gone by, or a couple of days have gone by, a week has gone by, and you haven't experienced any of those feelings. In fact, you have not thought about alcohol. As a matter of fact, you had to remind yourself that you had not had a drink in 2 weeks. As a matter of fact, you're standing in the supermarket and you've walked down the booze aisle, even though you've avoided that for the past 4 years. You've now walked down it and not even noticed that you're in the alcohol aisle. You go to a party and people are drinking and you don't care how much is left in the bottle because you're fine with your 1 glass or you don't feel like drinking tonight. You go to social situations all the time, regardless of whether or not there's alcohol served there, because it doesn't bother you anymore that people are drinking. That to me is extinction. When alcohol just simply doesn't play a role in your head or in your soul. It doesn't dictate where you're going to go or what you're going to do. It just doesn't really, it's not important anymore. And it used to be the most important thing in your life. If you were anything like me, every single thing in my life was dictated about whether there's going to be alcohol there, whether there's not going to be alcohol there. So extinction, in my opinion, is when that sweet relief of not thinking about it comes, and also the cravings disappear. You realize at 4 o'clock in the afternoon that you not only haven't thought about alcohol all day, but yeah, you could take your pill, but you don't feel like it. It's a dissipation of the power that alcohol holds over you, a dissipation of that lizard in your brain being in the driver's seat. He's now asleep. That's how I describe extinction.
Well, I agree with everything you said except one thing.
Uh-oh.
And that's that people absolutely will know when they've gotten there, because that's the whole reason that question has gotten onto this list. So I'm going to read something that I have pinned to our general peer support group page. And in fact, give me a second. I'm going to drop a link into the chat as well. On all replays, I'll make sure that this link is included. And it's an explainer of the concept of extinction. Because a lot of people really struggle with trying to figure out when they're at extinction. So extinction is a process discovered by Pavlov. TSM is pharmacological extinction, which means using a medication to assist in that process of extinction. You know the process has worked for you when you are able to make the choice whether or not to drink. Extinction is not abstinence. It is not overcoming habits. It is not even reaching reduction goals. It's not never craving alcohol again, and it's not never desiring a drink again. So many people have likely completed the process of extinction. I mean, in Dr. Sinclair's rats, it was 3 to 4 months, but we know that humans are a lot more complex than that. But people keep telling themselves that they haven't reached extinction because they're still struggling with their habits and with their triggers. Or it's because they experience an episode of what's ironically called spontaneous recovery, which is when the behavior being extinguished suddenly and inexplicably returns, but it's usually for a very short amount of time and passes. So the line of thought that because you haven't overcome all of your habits yet, you haven't reached extinction, it's counterproductive, and it can be a subtle form of self-sabotage. It makes you think that you are failing at TSM when you're not. It keeps you focused on what you think the pill should do, while diverting your efforts from addressing habits and triggers. No matter how long you use the Sinclair Method, after it breaks the alcohol equals reward conditioned response, the only thing left for it to do is to keep you from relearning it, which is why adherence is important after the extinction process. But it will never address your habits or your triggers. It just gets you to a point where you have the power to focus on them. So a lot of people, especially in the peer support groups, I feel like they're like, well, I feel like I'm not craving anymore. I'm not obsessing about alcohol, but I drank too much last week, so I'm not at extinction yet. I'm not ready to say that I'm there.
Right.
And so I think people are very hesitant about it when they should be celebrating.
I think if you have any feeling of freedom, I mean, that's this is also personal, but I mean, for me, it was when things didn't trigger me anymore. But that's not to say that I didn't use alcohol incorrectly on TSM. I absolutely used it when I was triggered by certain individuals or events, and that's not healthy. But we know a lot more now about changing habits and about dealing with triggers in more positive, healthy ways. So if you have a sense of freedom from the clutch of alcohol, but you're still making choices based on habits, that's the time to really explore things beyond the biological aspect of addiction. That's when you really get into therapy or peer support or find a loved one that you can discuss these things with, so that you don't continue down the same path, which is using a substance in an unhealthy manner. And that would be to subdue emotions or trauma or deal with things like that. And that is, once again, we're back to being self-aware and to monitoring our behavioral responses to things.
So what would you say to someone who really just doesn't know? I'm doing a lot better, but I don't know if I'm at extinction yet.
Well, first of all, I would ask them, why does it matter so much? Because the bottom line is, have you reduced your drinking? Are you happier? Is your life better? Is your health better? Is work better? Your relationships better? That's terrific. Why are you so obsessed with this word extinction? Extinction, to me, can be interchanged with freedom. Are you free from the claws of addiction? If you can say, does alcohol no longer has a hold on me like it used to? That is a huge win. So this whole obsession with, I haven't reached extinction, or she reached extinction in 4 months, and I'm 9 months in, and all this stuff. I mean, I think it's such a personal thing. Has your relationship to alcohol changed, and have you made an effort to change your relationship with that substance? Have you included new things in your life to deal with triggers and with stress? Have you started making habitual changes? Great. But did the pill relieve you of the constant thoughts and cravings for alcohol? If you can say yes to that, I would say that that is a form of extinction. If you no longer crave alcohol or think about alcohol, for God's sake, that's a form of extinction. You've extinguished cravings. So bravo on that. Now let's work on breaking habits. Yeah, I think people should just lay off the obsession with this terminology. I mean, because it means different things to different people as well.
And I think that's what makes this such a loaded question, because TSM, or I'm sorry, extinction itself is a process built on multiple repetitive actions. In this, we often call TSM Pavlov's dog in reverse, but Pavlov would ring the bell and not give the food, and then the dog would stop salivating over time. Just that didn't mean the dog no longer wanted to eat.
Right.
But so I think people get caught up in the terminology because there's been a pattern of declaring extinction as a singular event, which is basically just saying I've completed a process.
Yeah, I can tell you if anyone's experienced something that has come and gone, whether it's an earache or, for me, OCD, counting things as a child. I remember the day when that compulsion to count things went away. To me, that's extinction. It just went away. I was done. Extinction is extinguishing a behavior. So when your earache goes away, you feel that sweet relief. Oh my God, my ear feels great. I don't have that constant pain in my ear. There will come a day when you can say, oh my God, I have not thought of alcohol all day.
Yeah, Helen mentions, she goes, I knew I was working toward extinction when I managed to drink one drink, and I stopped. I have never done that in years, and it was a true feeling of freedom.
There you go. There's the word, freedom. You're back in control. That is in itself, all these little things, and these are big things, that's a form of extinction. I've extinguished a certain behavior associated with my addiction. I no longer hide my alcohol. I no longer lie about my consumption. These are huge changes in the right direction, and people aren't they're taking these for granted. That is a huge thing, to stop hiding alcohol, to stop lying about it, to stop drinking before you go to bed. I know some people that had a drink by their bed, on their bed table for years. That would be their last drink, their safety drink, in case they got up in the middle of the night. And then they say, oh, I no longer do that. I stop at 10 and put the bottle away. Oh my God, that's extinguishing a really bad behavior. That's fabulous.
In your opinion, is hyperfixation on extinction as an end goal as opposed to a process, is that keeping people from having the ability to celebrate those smaller victories?
It's absolutely it's hindering people from celebrating their positive actions and the positive results of TSM. Absolutely. Because they're so fixated on this end all. And that's a competitive thing that I see online a lot. And I think that's why I tell people, please don't compare yourself to anybody else. This is your journey. It's your progress. You know when you've had a good day. You know when you've fallen into habit and you're watching a movie and you mindlessly drink. And maybe you'll do better the next time. People, as long as you're aware and you're mindful and you're complying, you are doing a fabulous job. So stop comparing yourself to other people. It's going to happen when it happens.
So Batmando says, I turned down free beer and booze, top shelf stuff, because I didn't feel like drinking that night. Yeah, that was my extinction event.
Absolutely, that's an extinction event. That is completely, pat yourself on the back. Yeah, you're there. You're there, baby.
And Belenky Boy says, I knew I reached extinction when I started dating someone whose drinking I noticed was uncomfortable to me.
Bravo. That's huge, David. That's huge. Yeah, there you go. It wouldn't have mattered before. In fact, it might have made you feel comfortable about your own drinking. And now, and now you're not comfortable with it. That's amazing. That's fantastic.
And I like Letitia's comment as well. Any step, no matter how big or small, is moving closer toward your goal.
Absolutely. We need to continue to remind people of this because, addiction is so wrought with shame and guilt that we don't want to pat ourselves on the back because we don't think we deserve it. That's why self-care and loving yourself and being good to yourself and recognizing any small change in the right direction is imperative to a healthy recovery.
Yeah. I forget who said it, but I did see it once in one of the peer support groups. If you're asking the question whether or not you've reached extinction, you probably have.
Yeah. It's so true. It's so true. Yeah. No, that's a good question.
Any other questions or comments about extinction? Or even spontaneous recovery, which is a part of extinction, because what that's usually called in most of our peer support groups, that's also called an extinction burst. Or when the lizard brain fights back.
Oh gosh, yeah, that's a very common occurrence. It's almost like the lizard gives one last gasp before he goes to sleep and you're in remission. But it can happen. I've had people that are doing great. And then suddenly, oh my God, did I have a bender last night? And then they're not only back on track, but suddenly they have no interest in drinking. So that is a common occurrence.
And it is part of the extinction process itself, in the sense that Pavlov documented that. I mean, that predates TSM, the concept that that's going to happen. It's just that we have a very specific and narrow set of examples where it happens within the realm of TSM. And I think that, first of all, when people aren't expecting it, they think that it's unique to them and that, oh my God, this is my TSM failure moment. When actually it's common, it's normal. And as long as you learn to be compassionate with yourself and realize that it's normal and stay the course, the bounce back afterward seems to always be even stronger than what it was before.
Yeah.
So, we need chips that say, I might have reached extinction, but I know I'm doing better because of TSM.
I like that. And they're never taken away from you.
Right.
They're never taking away. You always have your chips. You never lose them. And you never lose your time.
Who knows? We might be able to make that happen. I'll have to look into that. So if there are no other questions, we're going to pause and go ahead and move along to question number 6. All right, this one I see a lot, and it's on a pretty regular basis. If I'm supposed to do endorphin-boosting activities on my alcohol-free days, should I avoid things like exercise and spicy foods on my drinking days?
No! So I get so riled up because people take the book so literally, and I think Dr. Sinclair, God bless him, I think that he would maybe, just much like I would change a lot of things that I said in my TED talk, like ordering Naltrexone online and that addiction is mainly biological. I think he might say, you know what, this is a little too hardcore. So Dr. Sinclair says in the book that you have to have a washout day after you stop drinking and taking Naltrexone on a Friday, that you shouldn't do anything on a Saturday, and then you do wonderful things on Sunday. In my experience, personally and both anecdotally with thousands at this point of people that I've worked with or known that are on TSM, or any exercise is great exercise. any enjoyment of life in recovery is really great for you. If you want to have a spicy curry when you take naltrexone and have a beer with that spicy curry, go for it. If you want to take a walk, you drink on Friday night and you want to get up on Saturday morning and take a walk, please do it. It's just going to create beautiful dopamine and endorphins in your system, and you're going to be in better shape. You're going to see some nature. You're going to feel better about yourself, and you're going to start creating good habits. So we want you to fall in love with life again. By all means, play guitar when you're on naltrexone. It doesn't matter. Make love when you're on naltrexone. People say, oh, is it going to feel good? It feels good. All of this stuff. Go for a swim. You shouldn't stop living because you're on naltrexone. People take naltrexone every single day with abstinence. They take it every single day for neurological disorders and for pain and for sleep. It should not be a give all be all. However, that said, the theory is and remains that when you do not have any alcohol or naltrexone in your system, take advantage of good endorphin producing activities on those days for sure. That's when you are going to feel a great reward, a wonderful reinforcement of these good activities. Okay? So it doesn't mean don't do these good activities on the days that you're drinking or taking naltrexone. It just means really keep in mind that if you have an alcohol-free, naltrexone-free day, that's the day to hit it. Does that make sense?
I mean, that is pretty much exactly what I usually tell people. I mean, first of all, endorphins come from so many different places as it is. It's not like, barring a major medical emergency, you're going to isolate yourself from endorphins.
Right.
Those are going to be there. But if you have existing healthy endorphin producing activities before you start the Sinclair Method, do not ever, 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 ever give up something that you're already doing that's healthy for you. And exercise is about so much more than endorphins. Yeah. Exercise, it's keeping you in a healthy, it's stretching your muscles, it's building your muscles, it's helping your cardiovascular system and your blood supply. There are so many benefits to exercising. It would be absolutely counterproductive to stop doing those things just because you took your naltrexone. Now, there are ways that you can also, mitigate the dampening from naltrexone. I've seen a lot of people over the years who will take their naltrexone when they get to their gym for their 45-minute workout, knowing that it's not going to be at its peak efficiency until after their workout's done, knowing that they're going to go home after their workout and have a beer. And so they're getting that done before they drink, before the naltrexone is active and concentrated. But also, if you're drinking in the evening and you work out in the morning, again, short half-life, there's not as much naltrexone left in your system. So go for it. Maybe you need to just change your patterns around. I mean, you probably don't want to take your naltrexone and then wait an hour and go to the gym, because that's going to be problematic. But
I'm going to let you keep talking. I'm going to be right back.
Okay. But the whole point of TSM, the whole point of recovery, is to build a better quality of life. Now that's not, the TSM part is by building a better health through less alcohol. Whether you choose to reduce or completely eliminate alcohol eventually, that's up to you. But with alcohol being dose response, a dose dependent to many chronic and health issues, reducing reduces risk. Reducing all the way reduces it a little bit more. So either way is fine. But you want to do as many healthy, good habits as you can, both on and off naltrexone. I mean, otherwise, if you're not improving your quality of life, what's the point? You know, what are some of the things that you guys have done on your alcohol-free days, or even that have boosted endorphins on days when you have drank? I mean, get-togethers can boost endorphins, and yet they can also revolve around alcohol. So it's two at the same time. What do you guys do? Of course, if I'm not talking when Claudia comes back, she's going to think we were all just sitting here waiting for her. Oh, there she's back.
Sorry, nature calls.
So I've asked the audience what they do, both on and off their naltrexone and alcohol days, alcohol-free days, and I don't know. Maybe the sound of my voice and your disappearance put everybody to sleep. But what are some other things? Oh, hiking in state parks. Again, so many benefits out even beyond endorphins.
I used to kill the hour on my treadmill, and I'll tell you, I still felt great. So, and I would take naltrexone and then work out. So, but all of those things that you're talking about, like nature hikes and everything, can only add value and benefits to your health and your life, your mental health, everything. Getting your heart rate up immediately causes a relaxation effect afterwards, and you're going to get that yummy feeling of it lessens anxiety. It does a myriad of things. You're just going to feel better. So do it as often as possible.
Yeah, we've got exercise, hiking, socializing with friends and family, petting fur babies. Walk it out with gusto. All of these are good whether it's an alcohol-free day or not.
Absolutely. Live your life. Enjoy it. Whether or not you're on naltrexone.
Yeah, otherwise, as I said while you were away, what's the point? If it's not bringing you a better quality of life, why?
But do keep in mind that the dual aspect, yep, that on those washout, the days that you have absolutely nothing in your system, you are going to feel fabulous. I got addicted to Pilates, and I still do it to this day. So, and that was back in 2009. So I kept that love of that Pilates because I discovered it in the beginning of TSM. And that was probably on my alcohol-free naltrexone days. Unbeknownst to me, I used that dual aspect of TSM to become sort of in love and more prone to do that particular activity.
All right. Well, if we don't have any questions on this one apparently was not nearly as complex of a question. No. But yet it's still really important because it comes up so often. The next one we'll get to is going to be a little bit more of a doozy. So we're going to go ahead and take our quick pause and transition over to question number 7. All right, we get this one almost like clockwork several times a year. Should I take my medication for food and drink that have trace amounts of alcohol but are considered non-alcoholic?
No. I mean, I even today drink alcohol-free beers once in a while, and I don't take an naltrexone. Dr. Escapa explained it to me like this. When I asked him about it, I said to him, I drink kombucha, I eat fermented food. I do like once in a while an alcohol-free beer, alcohol-free wine, things like that. He said, Claudia, the average human produces so much alcohol in their stomach just by fermenting food, by breaking foods down, especially fruit, things like that, sugars. You produce alcohol every single day. So no, you don't have to take a naltrexone. Now, there are a lot of people in recovery who say, well, I'm not going to eat that tiramisu because the lady fingers are literally soaked in rum. That, if you're going to have a massive piece of tiramisu that is soaked in rum that has not been cooked off, yeah, you might want to think twice about that because it might trigger you to want to drink.
But again, that's probably, do you think that that is because of the alcohol content, or do you think that's because of the trigger of the taste?
I think it's. I'll be honest with you. I believe. I remember I was triggered by. This is funny. The bitters. I thought that it was safe for me to drink club soda with some bitters in it, and bitters has a lot of alcohol in it. I didn't realize how much was in it, and I would do a liberal shake of bitters into a big glass of club soda, and that was my alcohol-free drink. Well, it wasn't an alcohol-free drink, and bitters has a lot of alcohol in it. And that was, I could feel the alcohol hit my brain. And that's when I went, oh boy, this is not an alcohol-free beverage at all. So in that matter, you have to really look at the label. But if it's a 0.005 or whatever alcohol-free beers are, and they're labeled alcohol-free beverages, then I believe that's, in my opinion, safe to drink without a naltrexone. That's the whole point of it, is to mimic having a drink without having to take a naltrexone and having a drinking session. And that's an alcohol-free day. As far as sauces and things go, I have some hardcore people in my life who say that they won't even eat my beef bourguignon. And I'm like, please, I cook off the alcohol. I cook with wine. If I'm not taking a naltrexone and you're in AA and you're afraid of the alcohol, come on, there's no alcohol in it. When I cook off the wine. Absolutely, cook all the alcohol off. But that's just up to them, if they want to eat something that is made with wine or not. But as far as TSM goes, I do not believe that you need an naltrexone when something has a trace amount of alcohol, because you have that much alcohol in your stomach. That's according to Dr. Escapa, because I did ask him that question. Now, as far as kombucha goes, there are some hard kombuchas, so you have to be really careful and look at the label. Once again, if it's just the 0.005 or whatever it is, the negligible amount of alcohol, you should be safe. If it's fermented foods, you should be safe.
Yeah, I don't know if you remember, but a few years ago when we were at a conference in San Diego, there was a gentleman that gave us a couple samples of breathalyzers. Mm-hmm. And so I brought mine home and just ran a few tests. Now, a breathalyzer, I didn't know until this point, you're supposed to consume what you consume, and then half an hour later, without having eaten or drank any more of it, that's when you test yourself to see what your blood alcohol level is. And so I had some kombucha that there's a local brewery here that partnered with somebody who was making fresh kombucha. So I had kombucha on tap. I had a pint. I waited the half hour. My reading on that breathalyzer, you want to take a guess? 0.0. So if it's going to come up as nothing on a breathalyzer, then it's close enough to being alcohol-free because it's not affecting you.
Those alcohol-free IPAs, I blew just out of curiosity, and there was nothing. There's nothing. It's alcohol-free. It's a negligible amount of alcohol that they use in the process of creating it. But like I said, that's in your stomach. You already have that in your system.
And I don't have my notes in front of me, but I know when we were talking about this a little while back, how was it? Bananas have like 3 times, especially really ripe bananas, they have more alcohol in them than alcohol-free beer.
Hasn't anybody ever seen the videos of monkeys and gorillas eating fermented fruit and getting hammered? That's rotten fruit.
Yeah, so, go ahead and sum this one up while and what would be any exceptions to that if you can come up with them? And audience, please, if you have any questions on this or any specific, comments, definitely put them in the chat.
I would say that things like trifle, rum cake, tiramisu, flambe. There's a lot of desserts in Europe that are served with liqueur over them. Common sense, folks. That has alcohol in it, and it has a lot of alcohol. If you can smell the alcohol, and in baking, it doesn't necessarily cook off. And certainly not when you construct a dessert that's made with alcohol, because then you don't bake it at all. Constructing a dessert is like tiramisu and trifle has a ton of alcohol.
How about Bananas Foster?
Bananas Foster, the alcohol is burnt off. You flambe it the way that I make it. You cook the rum and you cook off the alcohol. But once again, if you smell it and you can smell the alcohol, or if you take a little taste and you can taste the alcohol, don't eat it. Pass on it.
Or take the Naltrexone ahead of time.
Well, I mean, now we're really, cutting edges. If you go to an Italian restaurant, there's going to be another dessert other than tiramisu to order. So you can have a bite of it, but if you take a bite and you go, wow, that's really strong, don't eat the rest of it. Give it to somebody else. Be safe. But as far as like eating beef bourguignon or coq au vin or anything like that, the wine is cooked off. Unless you have a really crummy cook in your house, it doesn't bother doing it. Once again, common sense, folks. But if you're going to have a couple alcohol-free beers on a boat, you don't need to take a Naltrexone.
Yeah. One of the other items that comes up, it hasn't come up in the comments yet, but how about things that are not cooked that have vanilla extract in them?
Once again, common sense. I mean, did they use a half a cup of vanilla extract? I use maximum a teaspoon, and it's for the entire dessert. So 1 teaspoon of vanilla extract spread out amongst a 12-serving dessert, I don't think is going to trigger anyone to want to drink. That's just my...
And I think people tend to forget about that. They look at the individual ingredient and say, oh my gosh, it's in there. But don't take the time to think about the fact that, as you said, those things get spread out over multiple servings. So by the time you get down to your individual serving, it's a negligible amount of alcohol.
I mean, I put vanilla extract in my homemade whipped cream, and it serves 4 to 6 people. Well, how much do I put in? A half a teaspoon? Am I allowed to have it? Yeah, I think I'm allowed to have a 30-second amount of a teaspoon of vanilla extract without relapsing into some crazy binge. So, but once again, use common sense. If you can smell alcohol and it's disturbing to you, pass on that piece of food or that drink.
And I think other people have in the past, although thankfully not recently, people have mentioned things like mouthwash that have alcohol in it. Can you talk about that a little bit?
I mean, once again, you're not drinking it, you're putting it in your mouth, but if it's going to trigger you because you can taste and feel that alcohol, but that feeling, they make mouthwashes that are alcohol-free now. So buy the alcohol-free one. Common sense. If you think it's going to make you want to have a drink because it reminds you of the feeling of vodka or whatever, some mouthwashes, this is what people drink when they can't get alcohol. This is what people drink when they're withdrawing. Mouthwash, vanilla extract, but you're not supposed to drink those things. So if you grab your significant other's mouthwash and you take a sip of it and you use it and spit it out, you go, oh my God, that really, I can tell it has alcohol in it. There's only remnants in your mouth. It's okay. If you want to rinse with water now because you feel uncomfortable, okay, and then buy one without alcohol in it.
Yeah, I usually tell people, if you can legally and without question give it to a 10-year-old, you're probably fine.
Yeah, but once again, you're not drinking it. You're not supposed to drink either of those items, vanilla extract or mouthwash.
So it looks like we've got some people who use alcohol-free mouthwash.
Yeah. Yeah, and also, by the way, ZQuil and NyQuil, I always buy the alcohol-free ones because I don't, what if I use NyQuil or ZQuil and I don't use those things very often or at all. But yeah, what if I take a big gulp of that? That has a lot of alcohol in it. So definitely look at medications. Cough syrup. People get loaded on cough syrup. So use common sense with that as well. Ask your doctor. My doctor prescribes me alcohol-free cough syrup if I get sick. I had it 2-3 years ago, and I got really sick coming back from overseas, and he's the guy who gave me finally the prescription for Naltrexone 8 years ago or 9 years ago. So he also knows to prescribe me alcohol-free cough syrup so that I don't have to take a Naltrexone when I'm taking my cough syrup.
And Helen says, when I was offered antabuse tablets, I was warned about mouthwash and alcohol-lined desserts. Now I can take them without any worries.
Exactly, yeah.
And Letitia asks, and this is a good question, do you think this particular question is asked frequently out of a fear of relapse or out of a fear of nullifying the effects of the medication by using it improperly, or a mix of both?
I think people are like I was in France when I was petrified that I had not drunk after taking the medication after 1 hour, and it had been 3.5 hours and I was panic stricken. They're really, really hyper fastidious, and they should be. This is your life. If you think that banana flambe has raw rum in it, ask the host. And then if it's cooked off and you trust that person, okay. But, you really have to do what's comfortable to you. I think people are petrified of relapsing. And for me, when I had that bitters and that club soda, it absolutely made me want to drink more. So I learned my lesson. And because I had not taken an Naltrexone thinking this is an alcohol-free beverage. So yes, there's going to be anomalies. There's going to be bumps in the road. You're going to have to find out what works for you and what doesn't. But a cake that was baked with a teaspoon of vanilla in it, a cake that serves 16 people, you're going to be fine. Common sense.
Yeah, I agree. I think a lot of it has to do with the fact that people are just so afraid of doing it wrong.
Yes, of course. And I totally understand that. And I'm not belittling your questions at all when it comes to, is alcohol in this dish? Can I eat beef bourguignon without taking a naltrexone? That's a very legitimate question.
Absolutely.
In all restaurants and in I would certainly hope home cooks, when you work with wine or any alcohol, like when I use cognac or something, I cook it off. I cook off the alcohol.
And if you're afraid of doing TSM wrong, it's better to ask.
Absolutely.
Than to just not ask and fret over it and work yourself into an anxiety and still not know the answer. So even if it is asked because somebody is afraid of doing it wrong, it's so much better to ask.
Yeah, and you can say to a waiter, this smells like alcohol. But is there a ton of alcohol in this dessert? And if he says, oh yeah, we make it with rum, send it back if you don't feel comfortable eating it. This is your life. It's your recovery. It's better to be fearful. I want you to be fearful. Because listen, non-compliance can lead to horrible, horrible relapses, as we know. So it's better to be a little bit scared, but just also, ask questions and do what you're comfortable with.
Well, especially because that fear comes from a place of it matters to you. It matters that this works. It matters that you succeed. And that's a great place for fear to come from, because it's not the stop you in your tracks and immobilize you and keep you from doing something fear. It's that the good fear that is a motivator that pushes you to stay accountable to yourself. And that's how we're wired to learn and to do better and to improve. So, we do have one person out there, Classified, says, I've been doing TSM since the beginning of March and it's been awesome so far. Yay! We got a nice celebration out there. So it looks like we are done on questions about this. So we're going to go ahead and move on over and transition to question number 8. Okay, question number 8. After extinction, when I'm only drinking a few times a year, can I use a lower dose if I'm having side effects?
So that's a really good question, and I've run into this a lot lately with people who are drinking very, very seldomly. So I find that the safest way to do this, if you have the ability to plan, so let's say you're going to a wedding on such and such date and you really want to enjoy some toasts and drinks, I think the safest way is to titrate up before the event. That seems to have been the overwhelming response to people who have done it this way. So they will take a half a tablet on, let's say, Wednesday, half a tablet Thursday, half a tablet Friday maybe, or maybe just 2 times so that they can take the full 50 milligrams on the day that they drink. That said, there are a lot of people who have found that they've drunk maybe once or twice a year and 25 milligrams helped them get through that event. I'm not a doctor. I do know from Doctors Escapa and Sinclair that 25 milligrams does not block alcohol, but there's a placebo effect in the beginning when people start taking it and they think it's blocking it, and they actually drink less. So that's a really complex and very good question. I always say safety first, and that would mean taking 50 milligrams. So I kind of like the way people plan for that event and they titrate up to it. And by the way, this is without drinking. So they would take 25 milligrams with no alcohol. But I mean, that's a kind of controversial thing. According to your face, you're thinking I'm saying something wrong.
No, not at all.
No, but
I'm spinning questions.
Oh, okay, because I have found with individuals that this really works. They titrate up to so that they don't ruin their evening out or their trip to Mexico by having side effects. So they just plan a couple days before they take a half a tablet for a couple days. That seems to work really well for them, and they do not drink with that half tablet. So understand 25 milligrams with abstinence, 25 milligrams with abstinence, and then Friday night you go out and you have your 50 milligram pill and you drink. And hopefully you're used to the side effects by then.
Well, one of the things I was thinking about while you were talking about that was going back to our very first question. Look, you now have a very legitimate reason that you just said that explains taking naltrexone without following by drinking.
Yeah.
And so this is something that you've mentioned before. And do I recall right? Before you stopped drinking entirely, when you were only drinking really sporadically, didn't you mention that you would occasionally have some side effects from the medication because of not using it so often?
It was
so you're speaking from experience.
Oh yeah, no, it was like starting over, and I stupidly didn't know about. Well, I did not know about this titrating up idea because I didn't think about it. So I would just pop 50 milligrams and hope for the best. And every single time I felt woozy and out of it. And it affected my night out because my night out was going to be that one time I was drinking. 25 milligrams, which I tried, absolutely was a lot easier. But, is it necessarily safe? Could it lead to me wanting to drink the next night? I don't have to worry about that anymore because I'm currently not drinking, but nor have any plans to right now. But if I was going to drink, let's say I was going to go to Italy in December for Christmas, and I thought, you know what, I know it's been 3 years of no drinking, but I kind of feel like I want to, I would definitely do the titrating up. I would probably start 4 or 5 days before the trip and get used to the medication. Absolutely.
And I see a comment in the stream here. For those not familiar with the word titrate is, I learned it in chemistry in college, and basically it's taking very small steps to get to the desired amount. So what Claudia is talking about is taking lower doses and moving up slowly to the full dose. So it is the simplest explanation of that.
if you're hypersensitive to naltrexone and you haven't had a drink, let's say it was really tough for you to get used to it the first time around, 1-2 weeks of side effects, then you can start with a quarter of a tablet before your trip, and just, increase it as you get more comfortable. And by the time you go on your trip, you're ready to take the full 50 milligrams, and it won't adversely affect your good time. So, that I think is a very reasonable, safe option for people to get back used to it. And once again, if you only drink a couple times a year, that's a very real possibility. I mean, there are some lucky people out there that pop a pill and it just sits in the back of their brain, regardless of whether it's 6 months or 12 months or 18 months after the last one.
Well, and so here's a different scenario. So I'd love to hear what your thought is on this one. Say I'm on the Sinclair Method. I'm literally drinking once a year. It is on New Year's Eve. And I know without a doubt that I am only having 1 glass of champagne and quitting. Does it make a difference? Now, should it still be a titrate up? Or do you think that lower dose, because I'm not drinking that much, and I know I'm not drinking that much, because this is also one of those questions we hear. Does your answer stay the same?
I cannot, in good measure, even though I've seen 25 milligrams work for some individuals, I cannot safely or comfortably recommend that anybody tries a lower dose and then drinks alcohol, regardless of whether it's 1 drink or a half a drink. I don't feel comfortable saying that. I mean, I was told by the masters, that 50 milligrams blocks alcohol. 25 milligrams does not block alcohol. That is what I've been told. We talked earlier, you clarified in a really great way, how the body can absorb and how different bodies absorb different amounts of medication. And on a biological level, but we don't know. I can't tell you that you're not going to relapse. I can't tell you that you take 25 milligrams and wait an hour and have a glass of champagne. Your brain, your lizard that's been asleep for a year, might just wake up and go, oh, wait a minute now, let's get another drink. I don't know. So I'd rather be safe than sorry. I have relapsed myself on TSM. I'm never going to suggest anything that would put you at risk. So I say, titrate up, be safe, take the 50 milligrams, have your glass of champagne. That's what I say. Sorry.
I think that needed to be said.
Yeah,
because the common comeback on a wedding, I'm expecting that it's a celebration. I'm not going to be thinking about it. Yeah, I'm going to have a lot. But so it's common for someone to say, well, what if I'm only having 1?
No, let's give one more time out and then we can move on.
Yeah.
But to me, where the red flag is right there? The red flag is there because I've been there. I've seen that movie and I've worn that t-shirt, is that the lizard is trying to get you to take a half a tablet, knowing that this will be his opening to wake up and become the dragon again. The Kraken is ready to wake up because it's sick of being sober for the past year. So I don't know. Your lizard could be just saying, a wedding? Things are sparking. Endorphins are sparking already. Alcohol? You could even be sparking endorphins just thinking about that 1 glass of champagne. You could be preparing yourself and waking up that lizard by thinking about the glass of champagne, the cork, the thing, the excitement. I get to drink. Maybe he's already awake. Now he's telling you, that insidious little bastard is saying to you, just take a half a tablet. You'll be fine. It's the same lizard that told you years ago when you were 6 months sober, just have 1 glass. You're not an alcoholic. You were just 6 months sober. I don't trust him. I don't trust the lizard. So I'm going to say a big no to your 25 milligrams and 1 glass of champagne.
Excellent. I love it. And I love the way you have very passionately and yet very clearly put that, and why. Because it's so important. It's so important that you stop and realize that, again, you've made a commitment to yourself that you're going to beat this thing and keep it beat, why on earth would you want to take any chance to allow it to come back?
Let's just reiterate this. You are not cured. You are in remission. You are in remission as long as you stay compliant and vigilant. You're not cured. You cannot go drink without naltrexone, period.
And I think starting with, I'm just going to do the half is opening the door to the, if half, then maybe I don't need it at all. And that's a scary escalation to put yourself through.
I lost 20 pounds, but I'm just going to pick up a gallon of ice cream. I won't eat much of it. Okay, if you have that much willpower to have one spoonful, but you got a gallon there, and you're going to have a spoonful every night, a spoonful the next day. We know ourselves, folks. Be vigilant.
All right. I don't see any questions, so we are going to go ahead and transition to our final question. And this is one that a lot of people ask as well. So we'll go ahead and pause for a moment. When should you consider TSM isn't going to work for you?
Oh yeah, that's a really, and I've seen this. I've seen people work so hard at their recovery with TSM, and the medication just wasn't right for them. There are examples of people who they just genetically don't respond to naltrexone. When do they notice this? There's mixed responses to that. As hard as it is, I always like to have people try it at least 6 months. I mean, that's because some people don't see any difference in the first 3 or 4 months, but then I find out that they haven't changed any of their habits and that they did see a small reduction in the first 7 days. So this means that they might truly be a responder, but they haven't been helping the pill along. So I want to reevaluate that. So if you genuinely have been taking the tablet correctly, you've been complying, you've been keeping a drink log, you've been changing your habits, you've been staggering the times, you've been mixing things up, you've been going for walks, you have been doing TSM like nobody's ever done TSM before in their life. I mean, you're doing everything. You're doing coaching sessions and counseling and therapy. You're doing everything, and your drinking literally has not changed at all. And you're at the 6 or 9 or 12-month period. Then barring taking a genetic test for that particular gene, I think we can probably say that maybe naltrexone isn't the right medication for you.
So let's talk about some of the other things that people can look for in addition to their reduction. Because you and I both know that you can have responses that don't necessarily translate immediately to your drinks reducing, but they're still changes. So talk about some of those.
Well, I mean, if you're thinking about alcohol less, I mean, just the fact that maybe I have some people that say to me, well, I'm still drinking a bottle of wine every night, but I don't really think about it all day. So that indicates to me that that's a habit. They haven't changed their habit. So does that necessarily mean that naltrexone is not working? No. It means that naltrexone is working, but these people are drinking. Now, would you say they're drinking through the naltrexone or they're overwhelming the naltrexone? They're drinking.
Could be either.
Yeah, it could be either. So, that's a matter of changing your habits and adding more things into your life so that you're not just sitting there expecting to drink that bottle. I mean, I don't know. I'm not in their house. I don't know how they're drinking that bottle or if they've made any changes. But the fact that they say to me, it's funny, but, I didn't really want to finish that last drink, but I did. Okay, that right there says, hang on a second. What do you mean you didn't want to finish that last drink? Well, I just didn't want to finish it. But of course they did, because they don't, quote unquote, waste alcohol, or they don't leave wine in their glass. They're not used to doing that. So that's why they finished the glass. Well, that's an indication that the naltrexone was working, but they didn't listen to that cue. So this is kind of a loaded question. When do I know naltrexone's not working for me? I would say if I've done everything absolutely correctly and I've seen absolutely no changes in a year. If you want to give it a year, give it a year. It's at the 6-month point, I would definitely speak to a professional and evaluate what you've been doing, because it really could be something as simple as, I had a recent client who said, yeah, it was working so well in the beginning, but I don't know. Well, it turns out she's drinking all day and she's not taking a second dose. So yeah, the levels of alcohol are really not decreasing at a great, the measurements, the how many drinks per day. But the first part of the day, when the naltrexone was actually working, she drank less. So the naltrexone is working. So I think every situation is sort of unique, and we have to determine whether or not the person is employing the other techniques and tricks that you have to during your TSM journey. That said, I would definitely, if you think you're doing everything right and you don't see any reduction within 6 months, I would definitely speak to a professional and go over everything. Your drink log, that's why it's imperative to keep the drink log, because we forget. Even if it's a 10% decrease, that's important. That's really important. So you've got to keep that drink log up to date every single time you drink. And then you can see a professional, and they can ask you if you've made any changes. Go to a TSM expert, and then you can determine if you've really been helping the pill along. And then if they do recommend changes, you can try those changes for a few more months. I mean, we know somebody, Jenny and I know someone who tried TSM desperately for over 2 years. I mean, tried it and tried literally every single thing, making changes, breaking habits, and finally just said, you know what, I don't think it's the medication. And she had the doctors say, yeah, you know what, you're doing everything you should be doing. Naltrexone's not the medication for you. And the doctor switched her to a different medication, and she did great. So.
Sorry, I'm trying to take care of a few spam things, so I'm continuing to listen.
No worries. So that's my opinion on when you should sort of think that TSM is not working for you. I would give it a good chunk of time. And if you're only taking the medication and complying and keeping a drink log, I would then add, if you're not adding all the tricks that we've been discussing throughout all of these chats, I definitely start doing that and see if you see a difference. And that would be staggering the times, trying to delay, going out for a walk, asking yourself, do I really want or need another drink, and why? All of those things, mindfulness and things, start employing that, and then give it a few more months. And if you really, really don't see a change after 9 months or 12 months, then perhaps a different medication is right for you.
Yeah. And how much of this do you think comes down to people who fail to recognize and celebrate the small victories?
I think a lot of it has to do with that. And also people want immediate gratification. That's the way we're built. That's what this society, we have no attention span. So if you see somebody on Facebook, well, I don't understand why she cut her drinking in half in 3 months. Well, that's her. That's not you. Okay. You didn't learn this problem overnight. You didn't take your first drink and then immediately the next day have 3 bottles of wine. This took years and years and years of learning how to drink in the particular way that you drink right now. And it's going to take time to unlearn that drinking pattern and those cravings. So I like to think of every single time that you drink mindfully and you comply with the medication, every single time you do that is a drinking session toward extinction. It's something beneficial. But the times that you're drinking mindlessly, the times that you leave the booze on the table and just keep refilling your glass while you're chatting with friends or watching a movie, and next thing you know, the bottle's gone, that mindlessness, okay, you took the medication, but you really didn't do TSM properly. And that, don't beat yourself up, but maybe you're not going to get as far ahead as quickly if you keep doing things like that. So it's a matter of accumulative effort. It's a matter of keeping your eye on the prize, but it's more important. Yes, you're absolutely right, Jenny. Keeping your eye on your little successes, these small changes. I didn't finish the glass of wine on my bed on my night table. That's huge. You wake up and there's 2 inches left, like the gal in One Little Pill. She found this little half a glass of wine. It was unheard of for her. I remember the first time that I looked in my refrigerator and there was a half a bottle of white wine with a cork in it. I mean, there was never a bottle of wine with any wine in it unless it was a closed bottle of wine in my house. And I looked at that and went, wow, there's a half bottle of wine in there. And not only did I not finish that bottle of wine, I don't want any of it right now. So, that was a huge success.
Right. Even if throughout that week you still ended up consuming the same amount of alcohol as you otherwise would.
Yeah.
A hyperfixation on only reduction and we have several drink tracking things available, which is why they're good tools, but this should not be the only thing you look at. Whether you use a drink log where you journal or use an Excel spreadsheet, or if you use our drink tracker, those are all drink logs. Those are all ways to just keep track of your drinks because you're looking at just data. That data isn't judging you. Use it as a tool, but it is not the ultimate only singular reflection of the process.
Not at all.
One of the things I ask people is, so when you pour yourself a drink, are you drinking it slower? And people don't stop and think that if you're able to drink your drink slower and make it last longer, you're doing 2 things. First of all, you are learning your own stop and go controls again. TSM is helping you to achieve this. But also, if you take twice as long to drink every drink, eventually that's going to result in half the amount of consumption unless you double the amount of time that you're drinking. If you're drinking for over the course of 3 hours a night and you're drinking 1 drink every half hour, over 3 hours, that's 6 standard drinks. But if you're drinking 1 drink and making it last for a full hour, you're going to cut down. It's about, as you said, are you thinking about alcohol all the time? Has your craving level diminished even a little? What mindfulness practices are you trying to incorporate? What are some other questions that you ask people?
All of that, and taking note of any changes, whether it's, I went over to my friend's house and we always usually play cards and have a drink. And this time we had tea. Huge win. I went out to a party where I thought I was going to drink, but I got there and I kind of forgot to order one. I was more interested in the pizza. I mean, that's a massive change. Now, the next night you could drink 6 beers. And so that your weekly total is actually the exact same as it was the previous week. But you had that night where you focused on the food instead of the booze.
And that's success.
That is a huge success. And it doesn't mean that the naltrexone's not working. It just means that your journey towards extinction is different. The paths are all different. And you have to note those changes, those the biological changes, and especially the emotional changes. A guy cut me off in traffic, and I had a really crappy day at work, but I came home and I played with my dog. I didn't grab the alcohol. Okay, something's working. Something's changing, because your go-to comfort mechanism in the past was alcohol, and now it was your dog. That's huge. That's huge. And we don't recognize these little things. We take them for granted. We can't do that. We have to recognize them and say, wow, okay, that's a huge change, because my normal habitual thing would be to come home and get hammered.
Well, and here's another one I've seen, and you've probably seen it as well in many iterations. There are people who, at the beginning of the process, struggle with medication adherence. They'll take the medication, but they have a problem waiting for that hour. And then it becomes less of a struggle to wait the hour. And then finally, they reach a point where they're capable of reaching the hour without having that intense anxiety over it. And that alone is progress.
Sure it is. All of this is progress. Look, you're introducing something new to your system. You're taking control of your drinking. You are making an effort, and you can never lose sight of that. And that's why we always tell people, don't compare yourself to other people. This is your journey, and it's going to turn out to be the way it is. And if naltrexone helps you reduce your drinking, great. If you give it every single effort that you can possibly muster up, and you know you're doing everything right, and you've spoken to your provider and your therapist and your coach, and everybody agrees you've been doing everything right, and in 1 year you've seen absolutely no reduction, then it's time to go to your doctor and say, you know what, I really did try naltrexone, and I mean it from the bottom of my heart. I tried everything I could, but it's not working for me. And then they can find you a different medication.
Yeah, and then there are some people who, in fact, a lot of people we've seen do this, because TSM strictly works on that biological process. It's, for some people, it's not enough on its own, and so it's working, but to reach certain goals, people have gone to their doctors and either added other medications, gone to other groups such as Smart Recovery or Moderation Management to learn different tools. So talk real briefly about some of those additional things that may just boost TSM when done alongside it.
Absolutely. Exercise is always a great thing. We definitely want to employ mindfulness and changing of habits. I always tell people, you've got to start new hobbies or pick up old ones. It's so important. I mean, I say this a million times, but I'm always so overjoyed when I hear somebody picked up the guitar again, or started studying French again, or got their old high school band together again, or started wood carving or singing or doing something in the community, because it brings so much richness and joy to their life. And you are going to have more time on your hands, folks, when you drink less. So this is just part of the process. If you want your life back and you want to be free from the chains of compulsive drinking or over drinking or drinking to excess, then you've got to start filling all those hours that you had when you were thinking about drinking, planning drinking, and getting over the side effects of drinking. That's a lot of time that we spent thinking about alcohol, drinking alcohol, and getting over alcohol. So you're going to have a lot of time on your hands. So you've got to make plans now. And if you can say, oh, I don't have any money to travel. Okay, but you've got the time to take a Tuesday night and plan a fantasy trip. Anybody can do that. And that takes up the entire evening of no drinking. You've got your lovely cup of tea or your non-alcoholic beer, and you plan a trip in your mind. You envision this, you go online, you pick the hotels and everything. It's fun. Trust me, it releases endorphins. Get to know your local parks and museums, volunteer at your local food bank, do something by giving back to others. It makes you feel better about your own self, makes you feel like a really good human being. And we need that when we're in recovery, because we already feel badly enough about everything we've done when we were drinking to excess. So there's so many things you can do to add to this journey. And I don't want people to give up. When they think that naltrexone's not working for them, that's a very real fear. But you really have to say to yourself, have I done everything I can to help the tablet along? And you have to be really honest with yourself. And that's when you can reach out to a professional and say, this is what I've been doing. Do you think that I could make any more changes to help the tablet along? Or am I just not a responder? And at that point, that's a very legitimate, it's a very legitimate thing to do, is to reach out to somebody and ask them what they feel, to get an outside perspective on your journey. And if they say, no, you could tweak it a little bit, then start doing some of these things. And it really is remarkable to me that people just expect the pill to do absolutely everything. And by the way, I'm not judging you, because that's exactly what I thought. I mean, I didn't know anything about mindfulness or drink logs or any of that jazz. I just took the pill and waited an hour, and that was a huge accomplishment, I thought. And it was. And it helped a lot, but it wasn't the end all be all. And had I had more preparation, I added more things into my life, I would have had a smoother road to recovery. So I want you to do more, not less. That's what I tell people. Do more, not less. Sign up for classes. Start taking an interest in hot yoga. I don't care. Do something, not just, seeing the same friends you drink with, making the same plans that you did in your drinking life. You got to change things up. A lot of people get dogs or cats during this time. That's another thing, Okay, you could foster an animal. That's probably better than adopting one, because you don't know when COVID is over if you're going to have the time to care for it. But yeah, anything. Just mix it up.
So to end this segment, just real quick, just summarize, when is it too early to wonder if TSM isn't working for you?
I think it's way too early in month 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I mean, because we don't know. Half a year in, we don't even know if you're making a dent in your habits or anything. But also, if you've noticed these small changes, like I was focused on the pizza, not the beer, or I left a half a glass of wine on the table and walked away. I never do that. Or I went to a restaurant and forgot to order a second glass of wine. I mean, we don't know if did you recognize those? That's the change. That's TSM working right there. Any change in your behavior that's positive might mean that the pill's working. So let's give it a really fair shot. So I would say anything under a half a year, reevaluate at that point and make some changes. But most people really give it a solid year before they absolutely think about giving up. They don't even give up at that point. They start thinking about giving up. Because think about it, it took you 20, 30 years to learn this. Some people only 10 years, but most people took a long-term time to learn this behavior. And it's going to take a little bit of time to rewire your brain and unlearn the behavior.
All right, I'm going to go ahead and put out our little transition screen real quick, and then we'll move to a real quick Q&A, because Claudia is going to have to leave us very soon.
Yes, I do. Sorry. It's been a busy day.
Okay, so we've got a couple of questions. It says, are there ways or methods to help and support people that start like at the beginning of TSM?
Absolutely. You can ask a loved one who's on TSM when they're starting out, say, how can I support you doing this? And that would include saying, would it be helpful to you if I asked you before we go out if you've taken your medication? Because then that would open up the conversation about, are we going to drink tonight? A helpful thing, maybe they've been on it for a week and you notice that they were drinking a bit that night. You could say the next day, instead of saying, why did you drink so much last night? You could say, how do you feel about your drinking? In a positive, upbeat way. Are you excited to be on TSM? How do you feel that it's working? Open up a dialogue so it's normal. I would say that the best thing to do just to start off with is ask the person, what kind of support can I give you while you're going through this? Would you like me to just ignore that you're on it? Do you want to talk about it? Do you want to celebrate the wins? Do you want to do it privately? How can I support you?
This one actually goes back to our last question that we did about TSM and when it's not working. Have you ever encountered anyone asking this question as an excuse or a way to avoid the effort?
What's this question?
The one about TSM not working.
Have I ever run into somebody? Oh, well, yeah, of course. I've run into many people who are telling me that it's not working, but they're taking the tablet with the first drink, instead of waiting an hour. Or they're literally drinking around the clock and they don't know when they took the last tablet. And those are harder, more difficult cases. I'm not saying that the person's making an excuse. The person is deeper in it than we previously thought. So in the case of the person who's drinking around the clock and they're trying to fit in a naltrexone at the time when they think they have the least amount of alcohol in their system, this is not going to be easy for them to do it alone. So they might absolutely say, well, I don't think it works. Well, it's not working because they really can't find that moment to introduce the naltrexone to the alcohol because they always have alcohol in their system. So that individual, we've talked about maybe having to go for a medical detox, or we've also talked about tapering. And also the third option would be to get someone to help them, to really help them take the naltrexone at the most auspicious time and to really help them track drinks and to really do this first few months with them. So once again, that question is slightly accusatory because, is somebody going to use that as an excuse? They can be, but let's entertain all options before rushing to any sort of conclusions. I guess I'm highly sensitive about labeling addicts as liars because when you're in that much pain, and that much shame and that much self-hatred, you do tend to lie because you know what the person's response is going to be, that you're the failure and it's your fault and that you're not doing it right and that you're not trying hard enough. So I'm a soft heart when it comes to being in the addict's shoes. I've been there myself. So I would say with as much love and compassion as you can to say to the individual, well, let's sit down when you're comfortable and let's really talk about how exactly you do TSM, because I've learned a lot on my own, because I care about you and I love you and I want you to have the best support that I can give you. So let's talk about what you're doing and when you're taking the tablet and stuff, and let's break it down and let's talk about it and see if we can improve on it. There's lots of tips you can do. I've heard that you can stagger your drinking times. I've heard that you can, work out and things that help endorphins. So I want to help you. Let's talk about how you're doing TSM. And that's how I would approach it. If the person says, I tried that, it didn't work for me. I would definitely take the kind route and the supportive route before I would take the judgy route of saying, well, you didn't do it right, clearly,
Well, I think the question is more along the lines, not so much as they're using it as a lie technique, but more, let's face it, we will make excuses for ourselves and even to ourselves. And sometimes we don't realize that. And so I think it's more of a, well, it's not me, so it must not be working type of thing. So I don't think it was meant from a standpoint of, I don't think the question was meant from a standpoint of
loved one looking at somebody else. If it's an individual saying, it's self-sabotage, if that's what you're asking about, sure. Yes, we all have a tendency towards self-sabotage. And once again, that goes back to not recognizing small changes.
And I think that if it's a loved one or a friend, it's a lot more productive to approach it from a, hey, you're doing this one thing that may be sabotaging yourself, and from a gentle standpoint of, and I will tell this to a lot of people, both in my personal life and through the peer support. You need to ask yourself this question. You don't have to tell me the answer, but be honest with yourself. And when you present a tough question to somebody for them to reflect on, and you say up front, you don't have to tell me the answer, that can open up a person to being able to at least start considering your question within themselves without becoming as defensive over it. So another question is, I've been occasionally physically sick with naltrexone, and yet I want to persevere. Is that okay? I desperately need it to work. Should I power through? I'm on month 16.
If you're 4 months in and you've been
month 16, so almost a year and a half.
A year and a half and it's still making you sick? No, you need to find out if you have some sort of allergy to something in naltrexone.
It could be to the naltrexone. It could be to one of the fillers. It could be something that's not necessarily the naltrexone. If this were to come up in a peer support group, the first thing I would ask is, have you talked to your doctor about this? Yeah. Have they run liver function tests? Or have they ruled out any other medical issues that may be at play? If you have a gluten sensitivity, gluten is often put in as a filler in many medications. Anytime you have a side effect that is problematic, it is so critical that you go to your doctor about it. If naltrexone isn't going to be good for you, there are other medications out there. RIA Health has a good list on their website about different medications that can be used successfully for alcohol use disorder.
6 medications, and definitely 16 months in, talk to your doctor for sure.
So Claudia has to go ahead and say goodbye.
We're at 4 and there's LA traffic like crazy. So I'm already going to be late. I'm so sorry, everybody. And I was late getting in here, but I'm trying to get work.
More work means more exposure
to
for
TSM.
For C3, yeah.
So, and C3 Foundation. I'm going to let Jenny wrap this up. I'm so sorry, but I'm going to split. Thanks,
all right.
Jenny.
Bye, Claudia.
All right. Bye-bye.
So to the question about ED cannabis, we actually don't have any of that information. Cannabis works on its own receptors, and I don't, honestly, because we are exclusively focused on alcohol use disorder, there are so many different ways naltrexone can be used. But honestly, with the entirety of C3 Foundation being myself and Claudia, we just don't have the capacity to look at how naltrexone interacts for other experiences or other medications. So, I wish I could answer that question, but it's not something that we have any idea of. Any last minute questions? We're running in on almost 6:45 here in Florida, and so go ahead and type in any last questions you have. We are so glad that you were able to join myself and Claudia. Again, for anybody who joined midstream, the reason we did little washout cards in between questions is because we are going to cut each of these question segments into individual videos that we can put up on our YouTube. It'll also make it easier to highlight them here on our Twitch page. That way somebody doesn't have to go through nearly 3 hours of footage just to find the answer to the one question they were looking for. And then long term, we're hoping to expand on these videos and add them to our blog on our website with additional descriptions and clarifications. So we do thank you for being here. We really would appreciate if you could follow our little channel here. You'll get your notifications. I've got my first emote in for tier 1. It's in the approval process, so pretty soon we're going to have a little emote for you. And I've got our conference team is also working on some additional emotes. So we're going to be adding that to our streams soon. If you are a Amazon Prime member, you can subscribe using your Prime subscription for free. So you can support our channel with absolutely no money involved. We do have a donation button on our profile page. If you feel you would like to donate, we appreciate it. It's never necessary. That's why we put these streams together and we allow all the replays for free for anybody, whether you subscribe or not. And next week, we're going to be sharing some success stories. Claudia is going to be reading a little bit from Journeys, which is the book that we put out. It's been about a year now. And so we're going to talk TSM success to wrap up our month of April. And we are just really building up steam and momentum for our conference, which is less than 2 months away. And in May, we will have giant rewatch marathons of a lot of our streams. So if you've missed something before and you want to catch it later, we're going to be doing that too. So have a good night. Have a good week. And we will see you next Wednesday. Thank you, everybody.